Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome to Random Thoughts, Some Useful. Whether you're taking a drive, out for a run, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is your go-to for inspiration, insight, and real life stories. I'm your host, Jen. You can find me on all social platforms at Apothecaring Jen. Join me as we explore thought-provoking topics, interview amazing guests, and share tips to empower you with life and business hacks and everything you need to feed your soul. Let's dive in.
It's a nice day.
All right, back in this beautiful backyard, here for another episode of the Bro Sessions. Today we figured we would go ahead and just build on kind of the theme that we've been talking about the last couple of episodes, so kind of about resilience and bouncing back after life setbacks. I was about to say I don't have any real examples or stories about building back after setbacks, except that my entire life has been nothing but that, so just pick one. What about you? How do you feel about starting over, building back? Any stories that come to mind that are relatable that you want to share?
I feel like that is just life in itself.
Right? It doesn't have to be some big catastrophic something. It's always about analyzing and adjusting.
Yeah, I feel like you're always trying to build on new information, build the right plan, or head in the right direction.
I guess maybe that's part of the problem is like
Finding the right direction.
yeah, and like expectations, and then things don't really go the way you thought they were going to, and okay, now we've got to just adjust and go with the flow, or we could just get pissed off and stew in the irritation of things not working out the way we thought they would.
Maybe not everybody works well this way, but I think lists are very important.
Lists like pros and cons lists, or
Kind of a to-do list, but bulleted list of things that you want to do, but not necessarily a day-to-day time blocked, this, that, and the other.
kind of like the goals, how to
Right. Building back from adversity, a problem that you've gone through or something like that, again, is just a normal way of life. Yeah, I think that's really what it is that you've got to determine what is the best route to take in that moment and head in that direction. You're not always going to know, but you have to use your spiritual discernment to determine which direction to go. I mean, it's just like I was talking, I can't remember which episode it was in, but it was forks in the road. Everything that you come to in life, every decision that you make is just a fork in the road. And you try to make the best decision based upon the information that you have. And I don't know that anybody really ever knows. You just have to use that intuition that you have as far as which direction to go. And so when you build back from adversity, you just have to have a list of goals or have a list of things that you want to accomplish, and then try to head in the right direction based upon the information you have.
yeah. Kind of like always a crapshoot. I mean, you can prepare the best you can.
Lemons, yeah. Make lemonade out of lemons. It's there's plenty of plans that I've had in my life where they don't go as planned.
Yeah.
you know, and I think that taking in the information, trying to stay mindful of the direction that you're heading, using that information to make the best decision in that moment, and doing your best to keep a positive attitude, because you're really killing yourself if you don't have that positive attitude.
Right.
And I think that that's a lot of what people struggle with, is they get bogged down by life and problems and what the right decision is to be made in that moment in time. And they let it overwhelm them, and they just get into this negative state of mind.
Yeah, it's almost like well, for one, I don't feel like most people understand the connection between the way that we feel and the outcome of our reality. And I think there's almost like a social, what is that? Like pressure, like trend, kind of to almost overly hold yourself accountable and beat yourself up, and you know what I mean, rather than shaking it off and, all right, let's try better this time.
Accept your downfalls, but don't dwell on them.
Yeah. And it's almost like the trend of that, but also like the more I talk about this, then maybe I'll get attention from it. So maybe that becomes the social trend also. Like I see this a lot in friend groups where the things that they connect on are maybe the negatives
Similar
in their
complaints.
life. Yeah, similar complaints, exactly. Like, you know, my job sucks, or my relationship sucks, or I'm having this difficulty with my shitty kid, or, you know, these kind of things. And that's how people come together. For some reason, that's how people want to spend their time, which is really hard for me. Like, it makes it hard for me to even have friends, because I'm not here for that. I'm not here to dwell in the muck of our lives. You know what I mean? Like, I understand we need to assess the situation, but I don't want to just keep assessing the situation over and over and over again. I want to assess the situation. Let's come up with a plan. Let's move forward. Let's grow together. I feel like if it's important enough to speak on, then it should be important enough to assess and come up with a plan to fix it. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, I understand that.
Do you find that in with your friends? I mean, is this a thing in the male friendship world, or do you guys?
It's not often that we talk about
struggles in general,
our problems. I'll ask my friends for advice, but I don't go to them with complaints.
Hey man, I've been struggling with this kind of type thing, or what do you mean you'll go to for advice? What do you think about this? Or?
So like if I need some more information or a different perspective on a decision that I need to make, whether it be in business or with my family or direction that I head.
From your perspective, you're going to them in advice in those manners rather than, hey, I just need to vent.
Yeah, and I usually announce that or tell them, I'm like, hey, here's my options. I've analyzed it from these different directions. Do you see you see anything else that I may be missing? And the company that I keep is important to me. And I foster those relationships to the best that I can, but I don't always do as good as I think I should. And
it's hard to balance the time commitment to all the different things.
I've always been told that I'm a good friend, but I also feel like that I'm not. In some ways, I feel like now that I'm older, I don't necessarily concern myself with as much of their well-being as I feel like I should. Hey, how are you doing? What's been going on? I mean, I do spend that time and ask them how they're doing. They don't always confide in me in that way because I just don't think that, I don't know, maybe some men are. I mean, definitely there are men out there that are complainers, and that's what they do. But I think also sometimes in our friendships, we have to understand that there is a level of venting that comes along with that, and we need to be open to be able to hear those complaints that our friends have and stuff. But
right,
for the most part,
there to support them and guide them. And
right, for the most part, my buddies don't really complain. I've got a buddy that's going through a hard time right now that we talk about once every week, once every 2 weeks for a couple hours. It's usually when I'm driving and he's at work and he's got time to talk as well. So we'll spend an hour or two on the phone, and that's really the only person that I talk to on the phone for a period of time. Our schedules are different, so I don't really have the opportunity to see him in person as much as I would like to, but he's still somebody that's really important to me. And he's going through a rough time, and I try to get him to vent to me because I know that he needs that, and he doesn't really have it in any other way. So I request, hey, what's going on? What are you struggling with? And stuff like that. And I think that helps him, and he stated that it does help him, because he doesn't really have anybody else to confide in that way. And so I like being that for him. And I do my best to not let it overwhelm me. I've talked to Kayla about it quite a few times. For those of you that are listening, my wife's name is Kayla. But anyway, I've talked to her, and I've said, it's really heavy hearing what he's going through and stuff like that.
right, when you can't necessarily do anything to help.
And
Hate to see
but just
people in pain.
being there for him so that he has that outlet. And I do my best to give advice in a tasteful way, in a way that isn't offensive or somebody that's just telling him what to do. I try to relate his struggles to things that I've gone through in life, and just be positive encouragement in a way that doesn't feel like I'm just constantly giving him advice on what to do, like I'm some authority figure. And I know that he gets that. I really do. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of friends or acquaintances that just complain. I've got a couple other buddies that I talk to pretty regularly that we ask for each other's advice, but there's not a lot of complaints. It's just more of, here's what's going on. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have that too, because sometimes I feel like I don't get that enough. But whenever I do, I really appreciate it. And I know that they appreciate it too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question. Honestly, I can't remember exactly what your question was at this point, but
I'm not sure if I remember either, but it was along the lines of complaining. Good guys complain.
yeah.
Like it seems like sometimes women do.
And that's another thing too, is I know that that's one thing that I've been more mindful with when it comes down to Kayla and our relationship. Sometimes she just needs to talk.
Yeah.
And I just do my best to be
Listener
a good listener rather than a fixer, because that's my job, is to fix things. And I'm good at fixing things.
What? Right.
Whether it be with my hands or with my mind. I've always been a problem solver. And I think I've just gotten good at doing those things. And so whenever I get confronted with a problem that somebody's talking to me about, I have to tell my mind to turn that off and just be an active listener. And that's something that I think I've gotten better with my wife, because she told me in the past multiple times, I'm not looking for you to solve this problem.
Yeah.
I just need you to listen.
Yeah.
So, in any relationship,
Have you seen the video
there's
of
parts of
the couple and they're
parts of
sitting
you
on
got
the
to do that.
couch and the girl has a nail sticking out of her head and she's talking
I
about
think I have, but
it's really funny. For those of you listening, if you haven't seen it, go look it up right now and watch it on YouTube, because it's hilarious. It's that you're describing exactly. I mean, she literally has a nail sticking out of her head and she's
man,
talking
my
about
head
how,
just hurts so
yes.
bad. I can't put my finger on it. There's
Yeah.
just something that's really bothering me. I think it's coming back to me now.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but no, just listen. I don't want you to.
Yeah.
And he tries to cut in, but no, there's a nail in your foot.
Yeah,
Literally.
like if you would literally just take it out, then it would solve all your problems. But I just need you to listen. Yeah. 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 It's, gosh. We kind of talked about this last week on like daily habits and routines that, I guess, coping skills wise, that would help a person, help prevent, kind of like a proactive, how to stay in a positive mindset and not get to a place of overwhelmed, suicidal thoughts, those kind of
It
things.
is constant and never-ending reprogramming.
Right. So glad you said that.
It is constant and never-ending reprogramming. From birth to where we become aware of our surroundings until around 7 years old, we're in a theta brainwave state. And the theta brainwave state is a learning state. So whether you're asleep or whether you're awake, you're in a theta brainwave state for the majority of that time period. And people don't realize it, but human beings are programmed for the way that they're most likely going to behave for the rest of their life
By the time they're 7.
by their 7 years old.
Because of their social conditioning, their environmental conditioning.
Yeah, it's essentially learned behaviorism at that point. You're programming human beings up to 7 years old. So those years of their life.
As in, up until that point, they don't question the content that's coming in, for the most part. They kind of just...
And they're very impressionable.
Right. And they just go with the flow, and they're just absorbing everything. It's kind of like a crapshoot at that point, what's going to stick and what isn't, as far as bad habits that they're observing.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, another an analogy to go along with that is, let's say you have 7 years to build a computer, and instead of just buying the hardware and putting it in the right place inside of a computer tower or a car, for instance, just buying the alternator and the radiator and the engine and the carburetor and all these different things and putting it into this, or baking a cake, you have 7 years to literally write the code that makes that computer operate.
Right.
Literally 7 years to program the way that machine or that person or that thing works.
And you literally...
From the nuts and bolts of the creation of it. Yeah, it might be an engine, but I want it to work this way rather than that way.
Right.
You know, it might be a cake, but I want it to be these ingredients that are healthier than these Betty Crocker ingredients that aren't. It's...
And the second you put it in there, you can't take it out. Unless you put something over the top of it to reprogram, retrain, relearn, which is so much harder to do than programming it right the first time.
Right. And so as you grow up through the rest of your life, for instance, me, there was some point in time in my 20s, and I think that it actually happened whenever I was in Afghanistan, that I really became aware of my thoughts. To where instead of just responding emotionally or reacting emotionally, I started working on the ability to respond deliberately. And that was a really serious turning point in my life. And it's not something that stopped. So if I feel myself getting overwhelmed, whether my kids are listening or I'm frustrated with somebody that's being disrespectful in my interactions in life, or just whatever it may be, I'm constantly governing myself in that exact moment. And previous to my 20s and this epiphany that I had, my mid-20s, I would allow my environment to ultimately tell me how to behave. I wasn't a hellion, but I just governed myself based upon my emotions more so than I did logically. If somebody cuts you off when you're driving down the road and you flip them off and you scream and yell, you're in your car, there's no benefit to you responding or reacting that way to them. It only hurts you. It hurts your capabilities of behaving no matter the situation you're in, and learning to deliberately respond to your situation to where you can make the right decision at that moment in time. And I don't remember the exact instance, but I think I had just come to the conclusion through the struggles that I had been through in the military and growing up. And I started to really become mindful of my thoughts. One of the reasons was because I didn't really have a lot of friends in the military. And so I was really quiet and I was really observant. And it gave me a lot of time to be in my own mind and think and start analyzing situations. So it might be a good idea for people to just be a hell of a lot more quiet than they are. But anyway, so I went to work, I did my job, I excelled, and I worked on myself whenever I first got in the military. I had nobody else that was responsible of me. I was completely responsible of myself. And even prior to that, I lived on my own since high school. And I went in the military when I was 21. And so I lived on my own even from my senior year in high school to when I was 21. And I was still very independent, but I always had a safety net. I always had a safety net in mama or grandma or grandpa. Or, mom. And I still, if I got in a bad way, I knew there was somebody there that was going to help me. And so whenever I went in the military, I realized there's nobody going to help you. No one. And so, I was 21. I had already lived on my own for a while. I had been a manager at Best Buy. I had served tables, and I worked at a clothing store, and I worked at a farmer's market, and I worked at a pig farm, and I worked at worked for a farmer who needed me to bale hay and run the combine and plant corn and do all that stuff. And but then I also grew up on our farm with our family, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. So I got a lot of experience in life. But whenever I went in the military, I just realized there was no one else. And so I knew that I could only depend on myself. And that's when I became a lot more spiritual. Like, I was really spiritual whenever I was a teenager. I really was. I used to go to church with my neighbor. They would go regularly. Their parents had the schedule to. Unfortunately, our parents didn't have the schedule to because they worked so often. So I'd run down to the neighbor's house and I would go to church with them. And so I was really spiritual as a teen, and that's a story for another day down that road. But anyway, so I became really spiritual, and I became very independent. And that independence allowed me to become more mindful at a younger age. And I say my mid-20s, I really and honestly feel like I was like 21. Because whenever I went into the military, I'd already been to basic training in AIT at that point, but that's when I went active duty from the National Guard. Anyway, I really grew up because of the independence that I willingly forced myself into, because I needed to escape. I needed to experience something else away from
Growing up in small town America?
well, not even that. Like, I don't care. I never had a problem with Newcastle.
No, I know.
You know what I mean?
All the things that we grew up with in small town America.
Yeah.
And not because of the small town, but just our family dynamics and growing up on the farm with all of our family all around us, literally like right next door to us, or grandma and grandpa's and aunts and uncles and
Yeah,
cousins.
we had 20, 30 family members in a quarter square mile.
Yeah.
Like, that's where we lived. And we had probably 50 in 50 square miles. You know what I mean? Or 100, arguably.
Yeah. And we grew up on close to 100 acres between all of our acreage and across the street.
Yeah.
We just roamed the land.
But, yeah, so, I mean, really awesome childhood. But it was a childhood. Whenever I was when I forced myself into that perpetual independence, I really had to find who I was, what I wanted, how to be successful, and how to do it in a sane way. And so I've really never got in trouble much. I've really never partied much. I did drink a lot whenever I first got back from Afghanistan, because you come home from war, and that sounds, I don't know, come home from war. It sounds like the wrong term. Like it's an egotistical way of saying something. Like, or what? I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for.
I kind of understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Like it's just such a warped concept to begin with. Like, it's almost like there's a show.
What is the word for that? Keep talking. I'm just talking out loud.
He wakes up and almost like it's like a futuristic or almost like another planet or something. They've got these big, huge, robot things that they almost look like transformers that they, what is it called? Like not remote control. They actually steer the whole thing, and they go out and they fight it. And it's almost like a deja vu effect that they have to keep doing it over and over again type thing. But that's what it feels like to me, like war is. Like it's almost like a complete out of body experience.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. It's Tom Cruise movie. It's oh, dadgummit. You're going to make me look it up real quick. Hold on. You got to think of this
female,
movie.
She's
Elizabeth Blunt, I think, is her name.
Accent, maybe.
Grok will know.
But yeah.
If you're unfamiliar, sorry, I got to jump in here.
No,
if you're unfamiliar with Grok is the best AI out there, and here's the reason why. It is a text AI, just like all the others, ChatGPT and all the others that exist, but it's non-biased. So you can ask it, what do you think about Kamala Harris? And it'll just tell you facts. What do you think about President Trump? It'll just tell you facts. And then you have Alexa and all of these Google Homes that are,
extremely biased.
extremely biased. You can ask, why should I vote for Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris is one of the greatest American politicians of all time. She's ahead of her peers and blah, 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 blah. And she's fantastic track record, 98% of the population love her, approval rating. And then why should I vote for President Trump? And it says,
not at liberty to say.
Allowed to give advice, political advice.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Anyway, so that's the world that we live in, if you're unaware. But anyway, Grok is the AI that is on X, that if you subscribe to X for the monthly subscription, then you have access to Grok. That's why a
Okay.
lot of people don't know about it, because you have to pay for it.
Yeah, and they don't realize that that's part of the benefit of subscribing to X. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic AI. Anyway, so Tom Cruise movie.
I don't know that it is Tom Cruise. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it is. I thought there was a different
movie
guy though. There's Tom Cruise and a different guy,
where
right?
he fights aliens.
Is it aliens in these machines? They're like big transformer looking type. You know when the transformers are all out, not in the truck or car or whatever it is, but when they're like standing tall, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he repeats the same day over and over
Yeah,
because he goes to the point where he dies, but he's like restarted at the beginning
yeah.
somehow because of some technology or whatever.
Just some kind of butterfly effect that they keep
Yeah.
going back and. So, anyways, it seems almost like it's an out of body type.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. Out of
I
body.
literally, it took, as soon as I clicked the button,
Seconds.
not even a second. That is
Wow.
wild, man. You know, here's the thing about AI that a lot of people don't realize. AI is not intelligent like a human being with creativity, this, that, and the other. It is a computer generated way of processing data. And it gathers all the information accumulatively that it has access to through text, visual, audio, and so on, because it can recognize human speech, essentially. And it compiles that, and it processes so fast and can view all of that data so fast that it can come up with the most statistically correct answer based upon all the data out there.
Yeah.
And that's how it gives you the answer that it gives you.
It's like a. What is the term for something that's accelerated besides on steroids?
Just expedited,
Yeah.
hyper, like super fast process.
Search engine.
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. It's a hyper fast processing search engine.
Yeah. If you give it the right sequence of words, it'll
Correct.
return
Statistically the most likely answer.
Yeah.
That's how AI works. And so it's really good that what it can do with art. I think that for me, with AI in that aspect, I do a lot of artwork for work and recreationally. AI is cool in the fact that it can take a bunch of different genres of art and mash it into one. And so it gives you a good example of what quality would be. Now, there's so many intricacies to art, whether it be an oil painting or a 3D model or a sketch drawing or whatever that may be, whatever that medium is. But it has a pretty good way of mimicking it. I don't want it to replace human creativity because I see that a lot of people just go that route with it. But a lot of people are looking for a quick buck. They're not, and those people are not going to search for their passion anyway. They're just doing something for money. Maybe they're passionate about it, but you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's AI. Anyway, that's the movie Edge of Tomorrow, and
yeah. So my point was that I feel like it's maybe almost kind of like an out of body experience. Like there are life experiences that feel like different lifetimes to me. You know what I mean? I can't even imagine what it would feel like to be in such a drastically different environment for so long, and that becoming your everyday, and then you're completely removed and taken out of fight or flight and put into this wild ass environment we call life. Well, reality, back to reality.
Yeah, so one thing that I've always struggled with, I don't even know where we were going with everything today. I'm kind of lost as to where we started. But it's such a intense environment, whether it's just being in Garrison, surrounded by nothing but dudes as far as the eye can see for the most part. And you don't want to date somebody that you work with, you know? So yeah, this girl over here might be in a different unit and you might see her twice a week, but you're still working in such close proximity that there is no real opportunity for relationship there. Some people do, some people don't. I would argue to say that the people that don't wind up in a better situation after the military than those that try to marry from within the military. Just based on observation, percentage of successful marriages and stuff like that. It's probably weighted a little bit more towards the unsuccessful marriage in that circumstance.
Right.
And so that plays a part. And when you come...
I would imagine it would be really difficult while you were active duty to date or be married to somebody that's also active duty. There's a level of, you got to have each other's back. And no matter how much you have each other's back, I feel like when you're active duty, when it comes down to it, you can't, because you're owned.
Yeah, and it really and truly encourages unhealthy relationships out of marriage. You know, like it really does. I mean, you just end up with a bunch of one night stands and stuff like that, and stuff that you're not proud of. You know a lot of people that way, and
stuff to pass the time.
Yeah, and you're freaking miserable most days.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yes, there are plenty of people in the military that enjoy their job. And there are aspects of the job that I did that I enjoyed. But it's not like you're just, woohoo, let's go every day when you wake up. You have the discipline to do so. It takes a lot of discipline to be a good soldier that isn't constantly sleeping in. And be someone that is really trying to do the right thing morally, and also the right thing for serving our country. And then being that that mindset. That's the mindset that I was in. My mindset was Saving Private Ryan, and all these other great war movies, Band of Brothers and stuff like that. And then seeing that my dad was in the military and gone a lot, so I didn't have really the closest relationship to him when I was a child. And then just having to go through that, I felt like I had to go through that for recognition as a man, but because I wanted to do what was right for our country after 9/11. That's really the reason that I joined the military. Not necessarily because Dad was in it, but because just the combination of things.
I mean, I remember you always, at a young age, wanting to go to the military. That was kind of the plan. The unspoken plan.
Right, yeah.
But my gosh, Dad tells the story about you were like 5 years old and you're bugging the shit out of them. They're out there doing yard work and you're just driving them crazy. So he gave you a pellet gun and told you to go watch this gopher hole. And he comes back to Mom and is like, that'll keep him busy for a little bit. 5 minutes later, you come back with the gopher in hand. And he's like, oh,
it was the first shot.
Gosh.
It was the first shot, literally. I will never forget that. I was so proud.
I bet.
And Mom and Dad, I don't think they were too happy. Like, I was so proud, and they were like, what?
I think they were just totally blown away that you had accomplished that so quickly. Yeah. They really thought, the way he tells it, he really thought it would occupy you for a while, and it did not at all.
Yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, I guess however we got here was that I was saying that I've always been a pretty good guy, never really gotten in a lot of trouble. It's because from an early age I had to learn how to take care of myself. And then I struggled with alcohol a little bit, maybe about a year, like in the transition period from leaving the military to kind of getting my life straight.
Why do you think that was? Was it because you didn't have anything else to fill that mind time at the time?
I wasn't accepting reality.
Okay. which was, do you want to talk about that? What specifics?
Just the truth of the reality that we live in, the way the world works, you know, that you were talking
So
about.
you had a pretty big realization while you
Yeah.
were
And so, you know, like I said, I
not just
became
a
spiritual.
right.
You know, I became really aware of me and myself and the world around me and the way that things work. And
that's so
by,
hard to uh,
yeah.
manage.
Yeah.
Like, because it's really the veil really does come off, and it's like, wow, there really is a completely different life out here than what we've been conditioned to believe is
100%.
absolutely necessary.
100%.
And it's not.
Yeah. And so it's a lot to, it's heavy. And so I struggled with alcohol for about a year. And we had talked in the past, like, I already knew at that point, even when I was struggling with alcohol, I already knew that, but I was just denying it for a while. Like, I had denied it, my realization of the truth of our reality as I see it based upon my experiences. And it was just a lot to deal with, especially when you go to war and you see terrible things and experience terrible things. And then just not even if you're in combat, but even if you're just in that environment, just think about the mindset of a soldier whenever this was my mindset, is ignore the fact that you're going to a place that you could very likely die, percentage based upon where you are in the world, you know what I mean? Like, go to a war zone, you're more likely to die in a war zone than you are in, you know, first world country or something like that. You know what I mean? At least you were.
Of the jobs out there.
Right.
Percentage of how dangerous it is.
So you have to come to that conclusion early on that you don't really experience until you go to a combat zone. So, like, if you've never been deployed or anything like that, it's not the same. I mean, it is somewhat the same because you could be a target in the United States being an American soldier for sure. But I still think it's different than even being a police officer, where when you're a police officer every day, your neighbor could be your enemy. Not your enemy, but just somebody that wants to do you harm for whatever reason. And so, man, I can't imagine being a police officer. Like, the stress of being a police officer, I mean, I can tell you it was stressful just being in the military, just because of the constant oversight and nitpicking of this, that, and the other. And even being a soldier that excelled, it was just a lot of pressure. It really is, to do the right thing. And it's very easy to go down the wrong path. And luckily, I didn't go down the wrong path until that transition period. Which I say the wrong path because I struggled with alcohol, but I think it was a trial that I needed to go through to learn how to cope. Yeah. And that's the key, is you don't want to continue on. You have to eventually at some point decide that the direction that you're heading is not the right direction. That fork in the road, is it the right one? Is it the wrong one? You know what I mean?
And hopefully
you've,
you wake up
at
to
that point,
before.
through that massive amount of pressure and life, I feel like comparatively to maybe a lot of other situations, it forces you to really become mindful. Because if you're going to make it through it, it's not going to be because somebody else. And it could be the mental aspect of it, you know, whether you are planning to off yourself or you're just going to end up drinking yourself into a stupor. You know, like, it's a path that you take that you had two choices. It was either this or that. And you made that choice because at the time, that's the best that you could do. And some people just take a longer period of time, maybe based upon life experience, maybe based upon happenstance. I'm not sure. The destined path, I believe, just takes some people a longer time to wake up. And for me, that's been through all of this at such a young age, and now I'm 38, right? I'm 38.
Man, you're fucking old.
Am I 38? Thanks. I feel like I feel like I've been through a lot of life.
About to be 39.
Yeah. October 3rd.
Right?
Yep.
86?
1986, October 3rd.
Just baby.
Golly, man. I wonder what that day was like. I wonder if it was similar to today. It's beautiful today.
It is. So beautiful.
So, I feel like we've brought it full circle as far as me trying to paint this picture as to how I've ended up here and why I live the life that I live, as far as being as self-sustaining as possible, you know, and...
Well, for me, like, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, oftentimes, my mind picks up on patterns, whether it be myself or others, you know, environment, whatever. But I see how, just what you were saying, it's often some type of adversity that propels you into some type of growth, realization.
Yeah, I mean, it's like building muscle, right? You stress out that muscle and it builds upon it. So
right.
Just like parts of your brain.
Yeah.
I ultimately think that you're just exercising different parts of your brain that you... I'm not a brain expert. I know there's different parts of your brain. Don't ask me to name them. It's been too long since I've studied that part of anatomy. But anyway, I think that you become more wise.
Yeah.
I'm not calling myself wise by any means. You know, I just think I'm more wise than I was whenever I was in my teens and my 20s.
Well, you are. And I mean, but you are more wise than someone that hasn't had the experiences that you have. I mean, you know, I look back at all the experiences I've had where I've been able to live across the country and the jobs that I've been able to have, and just all the different travel experiences, and you do have a completely different perspective. And I, like you said, you know, it's some type of adversity. It's that sink or swim. It's that disease, that whatever it is, that moment where that dark night of the soul where you're with yourself and you have to, for me, all of the times that I really kind of had a quantum leap as far as mindset shift, that kind of stuff goes, it was during this type of time, right? Doing the work of what it takes to actually feel the feelings that you're feeling. Mm-hmm. And not make a choice to
and not avoiding
them in a destructive way.
Not right? Avoiding things.
Yeah,
you know,
that was something I really had to learn as an adult. Also,
to not avoid problems.
Not to internalize and learn how to talk about things. But it's hard to find a safe space to talk about the things that you need to talk about, right?
I don't. Really, I mean, until me talking with you, honestly,
Didn't really talk at all.
I haven't talked to anybody about all this stuff. I mean, it's hard to really sit down for a period of time unless you really make that time.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you can go to dinner with family members and people that you don't see very often, and you can talk back and forth a little bit, but there's really no more gatherings where it's just people talking, you know, and
philosophical,
very deep conversations. You know, I posted the other day on X, and trying to get you to go follow me on X, but original Jake B over on X.
I thought you were talking to like me personally. I was like, wait a minute, I thought I did.
No, you do.
Yeah.
But anyway, I posted the other day is humanity took a wrong turn back when we stopped having conversations around campfires. And
I chimed in and said dinner tables. I posted my meme the other day, I think, on like my story or something. Because I had made it back years ago. Oh my gosh, I totally failed today. I only have 3% battery left, and it's not really charging, I guess.
Is it still recording?
Yeah. Let's see. It'll be a shorter episode today. We've got an hour in. Where'd it go? 49 minutes in. We've got 3 minutes left of recording.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure it was recording.
Yeah. That's okay, because we both have, well, I don't know if you do, but. So today is at my local high school fast pitch team, whatever. It's kind of a statewide thing that the Oklahoma Softball Association, High School Softball Association, whatever, has been sponsoring, but it's a Cancer Awareness Night. So I've been asked to throw out the first pitch for tonight's game, which I still have not thrown a single practice pitch since I've been asked. You got,
I got a ball and a glove, yeah.
All right, let's go do that real quick. So yeah, we just discussed my phone. I really failed today. My phone battery is about to die, so it's going to be a shorter episode today, but we actually covered quite a bit of all of the things. Again, our intention today was just to talk about bouncing back from adversity and how really the way you respond to things is what matters the most. That's what's going to... Two things that came to mind when we were talking just now. One, have you heard the term, it was a meme that I saw the other day. It was, people say, parents say all the time that they would die for their children. Anything ever, happened, they would die to prevent it. They would blah, 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 blah. And the meme is, but would you live for them? Would you make the intentional choices to put yourself first, whether it be your health, the way you eat, which are also examples that you're teaching your children in the long run. So that, and then I just forgot the last point that I was going to make, but it's been a great episode.
I enjoyed it. I felt like I did most of the talking. I'm sorry.
The way you respond. No, you're fine. The way you respond to things, basically, yeah, we go through difficult times, but the way you respond to it is going to determine how much you're tortured by the trauma. You know what I mean?
Problems get worse when you don't make the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, you can either compartmentalize and decide, okay, I'm going to deal with this when I'm able to look at this in a healthy manner, or not. Anything but that, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
It is.
But you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it, and you can be happy doing it. And you got to sometimes realize that less is more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Get all the crazy stuff out of the way so that you can get back to the things that matter, all the distractions. All right. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Bro Sessions. You can find us on social media. Myself, your host, Apothecaring Jen, at Apothecaring Jen everywhere. And my bro, what'd you say? I ask you this every week. You'd think I would.
Original Jake B.
The original Jake B.
Original Jake B.
Awesome.
I wouldn't have made that name. It would have been just Jake B. But that wasn't available, and about 30 other tries weren't available, so that was the only option I had. Anyway.
There you go. That worked. All right.
I didn't know there were so many Jake Browns.
You didn't? Come on. How did you not realize that?
I don't know.
That's one of the most common names there is. Brown, for one. Very extremely common.
I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot of Jakes.
Do you know that I had 11 Jennifer versions that I graduated high school with out of a class of 89?
Whoa.
Isn't that insane? And then, get this, went to talk about being in a freaking simulation, go to school down in Texas, right, get my scholarship up in Panhandle, follow my coach because she leaves there and goes to start a new program down in Texas, right? Follow her. Year ahead of me, floor above me, is a Jennifer Brown. Is that not the weirdest shit ever?
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyways.
Edge of Tomorrow.
I'm
going to watch it.
Yeah. I have to watch it again. I'm glad we do. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Love you.